In this demonstration, we're going to show you how to prepare the IP phone and DHCP server for registration. We're going to demonstrate how to factory reset a 9971 phone, and then we're also going to show you how to configure the DHCP server with option 150. That's going to allow the phone to learn the IP address of our TFTP server, Trivial File Transfer Protocol. That's the server the phone needs to go to download its configuration. In this demonstration, we're going to show you how to set that up so that we can deploy and register our phones. First thing that we're going to do is demonstrate how to factory reset our 9971. This is something that I like to do with all of the phones that I register to Unified Communication Manager for the first time because it gets rid of all of the old settings. Whether it's security files, call records, all of that information is cleared and the phone is ready to register to the new cluster. If you were here with me, I could demonstrate the button sequence that we need to go through in order to reset the phone pretty easily. But you're there and I'm here. So this is what we're going to do, what I'll be doing to get this phone reset. We're going to press the Applications button, then we're going to press the Administrator Settings button. Then we're going to continue with our button pressing. We're going to press the Reset setting, All Settings, and then finally, we're going to press Reset. It's going to clear all the settings on the phone. It'll reboot, come back up, and it'll be ready to register to the new cluster. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this button sequence. I'll be right back, and we'll go on to the next step in getting our phone registered. The phone's been rebooted, wiped out, and factory reset. It's ready to go. In order to register it to Unified Communication Manager, we need the MAC address. To get the MAC address, we're going to press the Applications button, Applications, Phone Information, and then there's our MAC address. It's one of the first questions that Unified Communication Manager is going to ask us when we try to build this phone in the database. It'll want to know, what type of phone is it? What MAC address do you have? So we need that information. This is how you get it on this model phone. We're ready to go on to the next step, which is to make sure that the phone is going to get the IP address of the Unified Communication Manager TFTP server. Before a phone can register to Unified Communication Manager, it needs a few things. In fact, first thing it needs is for us to stop calling it a phone because it's not a telephone. It's a computer. It speaks TCP/IP. It uses Ethernet. It has all the requirements of every other computer. And so that means it needs an IP address. So it's going to ask, hey, is there anybody out there that can give me an IP address? And that's what the DHCP server is there for. It's going to offer an IP address, but because it's a phone or a collaboration endpoint, it's going to ask for something more than just an IP address. We need to configure our DHCP server to provide that, and that's called the option 150. That's the IP address of our TFTP server. Once our endpoint has that, it's going to go to that server IP address and ask for its config file. It's going to say, hey there, Mr. TFTP server, I'm a collaboration endpoint, I've got a MAC address, I need a config file. Did any administrator create it? And as long as you've created the configuration file ahead of time, like we're going to do in this demonstration, then the TFTP server says, yeah, I've got your configuration. I see your MAC. I've got your file here. And it sends the file to the collaboration endpoint. And then from there, the endpoint can then register. It sends a registration message to Unified Communication Manager. Unified Communication Manager then takes its IP address, and it's all set. If any device anywhere in the world wants to call our endpoint, there's only one way that can happen. Send the setup request to the Unified Communication Manager server. It knows the extension of our endpoint, 2001 in this example, and it knows the IP address, 10.1.5.4. The registration is the phone telling the server, here's my info. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, they'll go to you, and now you know how to get a hold of me. In this example, we showed you how a switch can be a DHCP server, but any device can. You can have your Unified Communication Manager provide IP addresses by configuring the DHCP service. You can have your router be a DHCP server. In fact, the commands to configure a router to be a DHCP server are exactly the same as the commands to configure a switch to be a DHCP server. So you've got these options. One of them needs to be configured to give our phone an IP address, and option 150, which is the IP address of the TFTP server. Phones have to have that so they can register. Here are the commands that we're going to use if we want to configure either our router or our Cisco switch as a DHCP server. We're going to use config-t, configuration terminal. That takes us into global configuration mode. And then we're going to use the IP DHCP excluded address command. We're going to start with the low IP address, 10.1.5.1. That says, hey, DHCP server, don't hand this address all the way to 10.1.5.10. Next, we've got the pool of addresses. We have to give the pool a name with the IP DHCP pool Boston_phones, that's the name of our pool. The network command defines the network address and subnet mask. We're going to advertise addresses that fit in this network as long as they're outside of the excluded range. Default router command is the IP address of the default gateway, the way out of this subnet. Every computer that wants to communicate to other computers in different networks needs to know this IP address. Option 150 is the IP address of the TFTP server, Trivial File Transfer Protocol, which is one of our Unified Communication Manager servers that has the TFTP service checked. Then we've got the domain name and IP address of our DNS server configured in the DHCP pool. We can copy these commands and then paste them into our router or our switch so that our phones get the information they need. They'll be able to register to Unified Communication Manager once we get the server configured. And that's what we're going to do next.